Assalamualaikum. Here Zikra Sahel. Today I'm describing a research paper about technical basis for narcotics, chemicals, and polycyclic aromatics, hydrocarbons, criteria to मिक्सचर्स एंड सेडिमेंट्स। डिफरेंट तरह के पॉलीसाइक्लिक एरोमेटिक हाइड्रोकार्बन्स जो हैं उनके मिक्सचर्स और सेडिमेंट्स का क्या रोल होता है नारकोटिक्स केमिकल्स के अंदर, उनकी बेसिस के बारे में, उनकी टेक्निकल प्रॉपर्टीज़ के बारे में हम जो है इसमें डिस्कस करेंगे इस रिसर्च पेपर में। इसकी कुछ समरी मैंने यहाँ पर बयान की है। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इज़ एब्स्ट्रैक्ट। एब्स्ट्रैक्ट में उन्होंने ये बताया है कि आ मेथड इज़ प्रेजेंटेड फॉर डेवलपिंग सेडिमेंट्स क्वालिटी गाइडलाइंस, कि किस तरह के सेडिमेंट्स क्वालिटी वाले सेडिमेंट्स जो तैयार किए जाते हैं उसके बारे में एक गाइडलाइन दी गई है फॉर नारकोटिक्स केमिकल्स इन जनरल एंड पॉलीसाइक्लिक एरोमेटिक हाइड्रोकार्बन्स, जिसे PAs कहेंगे इन पर्टिकुलर। द गाइडलाइंस कैन बी अप्लाइड टू एनी इंडिविजुअल और मिक्सचर ऑफ नारकोटिक्स केमिकल्स इंक्लूडिंग polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons using only the chemicals octanol or water partition coefficients। वो कह रहे हैं कि हमारे पास पॉलीसाइक्लिक एरोमेटिक हाइड्रोकार्बन्स जो हैं वो वाटर या ऑक्टेनॉल को जो है ना इस्तेमाल करते हैं अपनी मिक्सचर तैयार करने के लिए। इस गाइडलाइन में ये सबसे पहले डिस्क्राइब किया गया है। दे आर ड्राइव uses the final chronic value for type of narcotics. Type 1 narcotics developed from the database consisting of LC50s for 145 chemicals and 33 species, including fish, amphibians, arthropod, molluscs, polychaetes, coelacanths, and protozoans. The targeted lipids models is used that account for the variations in toxicity due to the different species sensitivities as well as केमिकल डिफरेंस। वो कह रहे हैं कि हमने जो है ना लिपिड का मॉडल तैयार किया है वो डिफरेंट तरह के स्पीशीज़ से लिपिड प्रोटीन को लेकर उनकी टॉक्सिसिटी को देखते हुए, डिफरेंट तरह की सेंसिटिविटी को देखते हुए, उन केमिकल डिफरेंस को देखते हुए द SQGs आर द ड्राइव थ्रू यूजिंग द इक्विलिब्रियम पार्टीशनिंग model and result as compared to the other sediments quality guideline. The criterion for mixture of pH is based on the known additivity of narcotics chemicals. The toxic unit concentration corrected for solubilities is calculated for each chemical in the mixture and summed. A total toxic unit greater than 1 indicates a toxic mixture. The indication is compared to the result from an experiment using sediments picked singly and with the mixture of pH. The toxicity and abundance of field collected sediments are also examined. Introduction for narcotics chemicals as a class. There exist different for many more chemicals and many other species. Thus the model that can describe the toxicity of type 1 narcotics including pH and consider the species sensitivity explicitly can be used to develop more robust WQCs following the US Environment Protection Agency's इस EPA जिसे कहा जाएगा टेक्निकल गाइडलाइन एंड सेडिमेंट्स क्वालिटी गाइडलाइंस यूजिंग EQPs. The water quality of the and the tissue criteria are presented in the common companion paper. The preliminaries are the mixture and additivity, aqueous solubilities, concentrates, application of ये दो के बारे में पहले हम डिस्कस कर लेते हैं। नारकोटिक्स केमिकल अक्कर एज अ मिक्सचर इन द वाटर कॉलम टिश्यूज एंड सेडिमेंट्स, देयरफॉर द क्राइटेरिया गाइडलाइन नीड टू बी formulated appropriately. The toxicity of the mixture is assessed using the concept of toxic unit. A toxic unit is defined as the ratio of the concentration in the medium to affect the concentration in that medium. Thus, the water, tissue, and sediments toxic units are defined as the additivity of the toxicity of narcotics chemical has been demonstrated by a number of investigators. The result of mixture experiment that employed a large enough number of narcotics chemicals so that the non-additive behavior would be easily detected. There, 3 of the 4 experimented demonstrated essentially additive behavior, and the 4th chronic exposure was the almost additive. Thus, the correct use of water and sediments quality guidelines of narcotics chemicals in the general. The pH in the particular is a mixture of guideline. Aqueous solubility concentrates The high dissolved concentration in water that can be achieved by chemical is its aqueous solubility. Therefore, the mixture lipid concentration that can be achieved is limited as well. It is for the reason of the acute LC50 database that was used to generate the water quality criteria for narcotics chemical was screened initially. The question of whether highly insoluble chemicals such as heavy pH contribute to toxicity when the present as mixture is currently being examined experimentally. Narcotics theory suggests that they are in fact should be contribute fractional toxic units limited by the solubility concentrates. This observation point out the importance of knowing the aqueous solubility S of these chemicals so that the equation number 5 can explain this reliability. मैंने यहाँ पे एक्सप्रेशन डिस्क्राइब नहीं की क्योंकि समरी बहुत लंबी हो जाती है. एप्लीकेशन ऑफ द पॉलीक्रोमेटिक हाइड्रोकार्बन्स द मोटिवेशन ऑफ द further development of targeted lipid model was apply its mixture of pH and other persistence narcotics chemical in sediments and the narcotics database used to determine the universal narcotics dopes and critical body burden consists of 145 chemicals of which 10 are unsubstituted and substituted pH. Mixtures experiment. The additivity of the mixture of narcotics chemicals in water exposure is well established. An experimental test of the additivity of mixture of pH using the sediments exposures has been reported by Swartz et al. The Ripoxnius and Abronius were exposed for 10D and sediments picked with acinephthine and phenanthrene and fluoranthine and pyrene along then with an aquatoxic mixture of the four chemicals. An analysis of this experiment within the context of the narcotics targeted lipid model is presented below. Field data. Their ultimate test of validity of sediments guidelines is their predictivity ability, such as can they be used to predict the effect in field collected sample. Unfortunately, the problem of the validation using field collected sample has not straightforward solution. It is extremely difficult to separate actual cause and effect from the simple correlation. The primary reason of this presence of the covariation of the many chemicals contaminated in field collected sediments, some of which may have been unmeasured. Other pH effects. The basis for the sediment quality guidelines present in this paper are acute and chronic toxicity data included in the analysis. The endpoint considered are the mortality, growth, and reproductions. Other endpoints associated with the pH such as tumors, immunological, and chronic disruptions are not specifically addressed to the extent that these affect the ability of organism to survive responded with which the endpoint that are considered their effect are implicitly included in the guideline. The more detailed analysis of these effects is available as part of the US EPA equilibrium partitioning sediments guidelines for pH. Conclusion है इसका targeted lipid narcotics model has been used to derive the sediments quality guidelines for narcotics chemicals general pH are particularly guideline concentration corresponding to the FAV and FCV level for protection of almost constant over the range of the known characteristics of the pH until the solubility lower applicable concentration. The prediction of the targeted lipid model are verified using the result of the spicked sediment mixture experiment. spicked sediment mixture experiment को वेरीफाई करने के लिए जो है ना लिपिड मॉडल तैयार किया गया था जो कि पीएच की गाइडलाइन पे था और वो हमारे पास तैयार हो गई थी. कंक्लूजन के अंदर द प्रेडिक्शन को कंपेयर किया गया था रिपोक्सिनियस टॉक्सिसिटी टेस्ट के साथ जो कि field collected sediment from the location where the pH are suspected to be primarily cause of toxicity. The results are consistent with the prediction when the 31 pH were measured. For the data when only 13 pH no alkylated pH was quantified. The results are comparable if an estimate of the total pH concentration is used. The observation of the Amplifica abundance in field collected sediments is consistent with the prediction of benthic effects when the narcotics FCV guidelines. is exceeded, the lower effect level suggested by others is inconsistent with these data. A situation has been reported where the Repoxenius toxicity is predicted but not observed. This is attributed to all the presence of visible pitch or cook particles or globules that are not in equilibrium with the pore water. Empirically derived guidelines for total pH are roughly equal to the factor of 3 lower or the 1 organic carbon sediments. However, it is wide order magnitude uncertainty due to which the variation of organic carbon concentration in sediment that they do not account for. The individual pH empirical guidelines are 1 to 2 order of magnitude smaller than the narcotics concentration. They are known to cause mortality, growth, and reproduction effects, and therefore not reflective of actual effect concentration of these endpoints. Thank you so much.